Many years ago, when we were all much younger, in the early days of television, there used to be a program called The World This Week, and we all waited for it. That was our exposure to what is happening in the world. And I've been thinking for a while, why don't we have The World This Week in cricket? So I thought I'd start it on my YouTube channel. It'll be as chatty and as informal as you've got used to it, and we'll look at news and have comments as well. So this week, for example, in Hawkeye, things that caught my eye, we'll look at baseball and fourth innings run chases and some very interesting changes to the playing conditions. We'll look at stumped, something that I didn't see coming. We'll have an editorial. Can you actually equalize games and opportunities in the World Test Championship cycle? And we'll end with rock and roll, just looking back at something else that happened in this week, a little afternoon to leave you with. So we'll start with Hawkeye. I'm absolutely fascinated by the way England are playing test match cricket. They don't like draws. Sometimes they lose matches that you think they could have saved, but that is the philosophy with which they play, and they love fourth innings run chases. Under Ben Stokes, it's almost as if they're playing a 50-over game and they're saying, you bat first, score as many as you can, we just chase them down. So the game spends 3.5 days, 4 days sometimes in just being set up, and then they back themselves to chase it. Now, in scores greater than 250, they've won 6, lost 6. Now, if you're fans of English cricket, you'll say, lost 6, that's not good enough. But I think that will change because England are starting to put together what I already believe is by some distance the best batting side in world cricket, and it's an approach that actually works better on flattish decks. Now look what we got in Headingley. When in the days gone by, Headingley, the ball used to seam around a lot. There was a lot for bowlers. It's flattening out. I'm told Birmingham is flat as well. It works very well on fairly standard pitches. So I think we'll see much more of that. And I'm not surprised at all that if you look at the 5 biggest run chases over history, 3 have come in recent times, and India have borne the brunt of it, haven't it? Remember Birmingham when they leveled the score? Now in Leeds, it seemed as if it was inevitable. And the one thing I like about baseball is they've given us Ben Duckett. I love Ben Duckett. I love Ben Duckett with bat in hand. Not as much Ben Duckett with lip, but I think that'll change as well. But I just enjoy the way they're going about it. Baseball is about freeing the mind. And more they're going away from the recklessness which was causing them to lose matches. I often joked with people that when you're playing England in baseball, you only have to take 7 wickets, they'll give you 3 anyway. You get that feeling sometimes still, but they're changing. They're becoming tactically a little bit more astute. And if you choose to call it baseball, it's going up to 2.0. But what they do in the 4th innings, it caught my eye. It was absolutely thrilling. What else caught my eye? 2 very interesting changes in playing conditions, and one specific to T20 cricket. The first is use of saliva. Now, those of you remember that after COVID, saliva was banned. It's still not allowed to use it in IPL, but it's still not allowed in international cricket. Earlier, what bowlers were doing, therefore, is if they were spotted using saliva, the umpire was changing the ball. You got a 5-run fine, but the umpire was changing the ball. And bowlers, being the cleverest species on the planet, might have worked out that 5 runs is a small price to pay to change a ball that we do not like. Now the playing conditions are saying if you're spotted using saliva, you'll still lose 5 runs, but the ball will not be changed. It doesn't mean that you go back to the old system where you put a lot of saliva on one side, sometimes more than saliva, made one side heavy and got reverse swing. Because every time you're spotted, you lose 5 runs, and then it starts to become a little more expensive. So that is the way it is now. The umpires are the policemen, the bowlers are the people who are constantly searching. So that is the one big change in the playing condition. You put saliva, you continue with the ball. The second is a very interesting one. Now you would have noticed sometimes that if a batter is given out, caught behind, and then if you find it's actually missed the edge but has taken the pad, then you review the LBW as well. There's a subtle change now to the playing conditions. If the batter is given out and the batter reviews, and you find on review that it's actually missed most times the inside edge and taken the pad, when you review for LBW, because the original decision was out, when it goes back to reviewing the LBW, umpire's call will be in the bowler's favor because the original decision was out. Now, you may disagree with it, saying, look, originally he gave it out for caught behind and not for LBW. But I checked this with Nitin Menon and he said, look, when the umpire gives it out, it's out under all modes of dismissal. So now, if the verdict is umpire's call on a leg before check for a caught behind a field, you will be given out. But it is fair to the extent that if the bowler reviews, the umpire gives it not out, the bowler reviews, and on review you find that it actually did not hit the bat. So the umpire was right in the first case. Then when you check LBW, umpire's call will stay in favor of not out. So that is an interesting change to the playing conditions. Thought I'd share that with you. The one I like the most has come into T20 cricket, which a lot of you see much more than you do test match cricket, and it concerns power play in range shortened matches. Now earlier, you had 6 overs, 20 over game. The moment it was a range shortened game, you took the ratio 6 by 20, multiplied by how many overs left, and then rounded it off to the closest integer. And so you got, say, 4 overs of power play. You might now discover, I mean, it's been true all along, that it's not really 4, but say 3.3. So you get 3 additional balls of power play, and now with batting going where it is, especially in the power play, the lawmakers are saying, look, 3 balls is a lot of balls to get an advantage from. So from now on, power play in range shortened matches will be about balls delivered, not rounding off to the closest integer. So if it's 3.3 for power play, as soon as the third ball in the third over is bowled, the umpire makes a signal, you can send 3 more fielders outside. I like this rule very much, and I think it's a very good example of staying contemporary and moving on with the times, and, as I said, staying relevant to the evolving nature of the game. It was also a week in which Angelo Matthews retired. I had a lot of time for Angelo Matthews. When I first saw him in 2009, he was taking the new ball in a T20 World Cup and actually taking it very well. But when he came out to bat, he just looked wonderful. And I remember, actually it was in a lift, remembered asking Kumar Sangakkara about Angelo Matthews. And I said, he'll be a batting all-rounder, won't he? He said, yes, he will. And a very good one at that. So when he finishes after a career that a lot of people would be proud of, I'm still disappointed with Angelo Matthews because I thought he could have delivered much more. In his form, if you remember that great test match that Sri Lanka won in Headingley. He got 100, he took 4 wickets as well. That is the player that I thought Angelo Matthews should have been most times. I thought he could have played the Kallis kind of role for Sri Lanka. Maybe he wasn't quite a Jacques Kallis, but I'll tell you what, he was a serious batter. He's finished at number 3 on the run scorers list for Sri Lanka. That makes him one of their best already. Probably go into an all-time Sri Lankan 11. But I thought as an all-rounder, he could have done much more. But sometimes it's what you do off the field that impacts what you do on it. And maybe that was the case with Angelo Matthews. Maybe it was with his fitness as well. Maybe just his body just wasn't ready to do that. Maybe he didn't create his body to do that. But that's the reason I'm bringing out this when he retires, is because I thought Angelo Matthews was that kind of player. The 2 players from Sri Lanka in the last 15 years have looked at and gone, wow, they can play. Angelo Matthews and Kushal Mendis. Maybe Kushal Mendis will pick up as well. But well played, Angelo Matthews. You've been very good for Sri Lankan cricket. 3rd in the run scorers list. You can be very proud of what you've achieved. And I wish you a very good career in white ball cricket. Also moving on as well for someone I knew. Sadly, there are no comebacks there. Dilip Doshi was a warm, hospitable person. Every time I met him, we'd have a little joke because he was by some distance the best dressed cricketer that I've ever met. And I would meet him and say, Dilip bhai, why don't you teach me some style? You can't teach me left arm spin. Why don't you teach me some style? And we'd have a bit of a smile and a joke over it. But he was a serious cricketer. Some of you go back, remember the 1981 test match in Melbourne, one of the greatest Indian test match wins overseas. There he is bowling with a fractured toe and bowling very, very well from one end. He was a player who was respected around the cricket world. Can you imagine starting your career around 31, 32? Because the great Bishan Bedi was bowling all along. And you're living in his shadow like quite a few were. But going on, taking wickets, played with great distinction for Bengal, later on for Saurashtra. And the moment he came back in, for a lot of people listening on radio in those days, it's like, but this is Dilip Doshi, not Bishan Bedi. Straight away, he took 6 wickets. He finished with 100+ wickets in Test cricket. When you're starting at that age, that's not easy at all. His strike rate was comparable with the very best. Dilip Doshi was a serious cricketer and a man I was very happy to know. So, rest in peace, Dilip bhai. You were very, very good for Indian cricket. Let's move on. Our next segment is stumped. Something I didn't see coming, something I didn't like seeing coming either. 2,589 test matches. Well, the counter keeps ticking. It might be 1 or 2 here and there. Never before in the history of the game has a team made 5 centuries in a test match and lost. It's a record nobody wants. It's a record India doesn't want, but it's a record that India must hold. And it's a record that I do not see being broken. I didn't even see this coming, in fact. So I was genuinely stumped by that. Why did that happen? The moment that happens, you look at the bowling and say, the bowling wasn't good enough. Because your batter scored runs too. I think it goes back to losing 13 wickets for 72 runs. You cannot do that. Look, let's do a simple arithmetic. If you make 200s, you've got about 220, 230 runs at least. You always score more than 350. You must score more than 350. But if you've got 300, one of them will be a little bigger. You're definitely with 350, 360 runs in the bank. You have to score 500 runs from there. The moment you get to 500, then someone sneaks through, you make 520, 530. Now, if India had wagged a little bit in both innings, instead of 70, we get 130, this game is not going anywhere. So I was taken aback, and I hope I don't see that too often. In the editorial this week, I'll share some thoughts on this new World Test Championship cycle, 25 to 27. There's been a lot of talk in the previous cycle of whether South Africa deserved to be in the final. My thought on that is, look, they didn't cheat. The system was what it was. South Africa played the system. They didn't game the system, but that was the reality of Test match cricket for them. They entered the final. They won the finals fair and square. So I have no issues at all with what happened there. In fact, I sat where I was and I clapped for South Africa because I've been a major cricket fan of South Africa since their return to international cricket. But there was a lot of talk about how few test matches South Africa played. Now let's look at what lies ahead in the 25 to 27 cycle, and you'll see something almost similar. Look at how many test matches England and Australia are playing, 22 and 21. India play 18 test matches. But look at what you see with South Africa, Sri Lanka, West Indies and Pakistan. And the reason I bring up those four is that those are the four countries that have often said they cannot afford to play test match cricket. They're playing 14, 12, 14, 13. That means that almost all their test matches are two-match series. None of us like two-match series. So why are they playing two-match series? I think you must look at the World Test Championship from the prism of the financial reality of our game. Test matches lose money. I've heard it said before, and I found it amusing, that Test cricket is coming in the way of T20 cricket growing. No. I've often said it, and I'll say it again. T20 cricket is allowing us to keep test match cricket alive. We've had a wonderful test match cycle where we've got some great test matches. All these other countries that I talked about, they can play that because that is how they need to use their funds that are coming from the ICC. The more test cricket they play, the more they lose. There's a very interesting interview with the CEO of West Indies cricket where he talked about how much money it costs them to go and play a test series in Australia. You play test cricket, you lose money. And so they're saying we'll cut our losses. You can also understand now, therefore, why the CPL is so important, why the PSL is so important, and critically for a team that has just won the World Test Championship, why the SA20 is so important, because they have to find other means of revenue to be able to sustain this historic form of the game. I hope Sri Lanka can get it as well. I'm not sure these T20 leagues are making money, but that is an investment to be able to make money. And the truth is that they cannot afford to play more test match cricket. Sometimes you live in England, you live in Australia, and you have a distorted view of the reality of our game. That is why you must always speak to people from other countries and they will tell you what is happening. South Africa is the best example of that. A proud country that cannot always afford to play test match cricket because of the crowds, because of the rights money. England can, Australia can. They have a subscription model. They get a lot of money from television rights deals. They get a lot of money when India travels there, and so they can afford to play a lot more test match cricket. There's a great culture of viewing test match cricket there, but that's not true in other places. So this is how it will be going ahead in the World Test Championship cycle. We must just be thankful and grateful for the fact that T20 cricket is bringing in the money that is allowing us to keep our favorite form of the game alive. And I hope it continues to give us some excellent test matches like the kind we had in Leeds recently. In rock and roll, we're going to look at something that happened on the 29th of June. I can't believe it's already a year since the 29th of June 2024 and India won a world title after 13 years. It took the 29th of June into some memorable dates in Indian cricket history. The 25th of June, the 2nd of April, the 24th of September, and now the 29th of June. I remember that day very vividly. In Bridgetown, Barbados, India make 176 runs. You think it's not enough. We've lost wickets early. Akshar Patel played an innings that we must never allow ourselves to forget. And then towards the end, a little burst from Shivam Dube, even a boundary at the end from Hardik Pandya, but 176 may not have been enough. It looked like it might have been from the way it started, but when it comes down to 26 of 24, the partnership is already excellent. Then it comes down to Jasprit Bumrah. I'll tell you, I had assumed that the game was over, I'll be honest. I had to go down and do the interviews afterwards, so I quickly went down to grab a bite. I'm watching it on television down in the little catering area in Kensington Oval, and suddenly I saw the wickets go and I did not move. I was watching. It was incredible what Bumrah did, and then the catch by Surya Kumar Yadav at the end, the over that Hardik Pandya bowled. But what I will remember of the 29th of June 2024 is what followed, because in one frame, in my eyes, in one frame, I saw celebration, relief, everything in one frame on my right, and as my eyes traveled left, I saw the very picture of despair. South Africa so close, and once again denied. You could say it was a mental weakness, you could say it was good bowling, but I saw those two facets of our great game all there in one frame. So 29th of June is actually a pretty good week for India. 25th of June was when India won the World Cup back in '83, was also back in 1932, the day India played their first ever test match. I always keep saying, I wonder how romantic, what a beautiful feeling it must have been for those 11 people to take the field thinking they are representing India in international cricket, and we must keep that memory alive as well. So there you are, that's what happened this week. We looked back only last year, but we'll go back even further as we go along. I hope you like the idea of the world this week. Send in your comments, tell us what you think. Maybe now that you know what the segments are, maybe you can contribute to those as well. Send those in, and I'll try and keep all those in mind when I bring them to you. Thank you very much for joining, and hopefully the world this week will go on for a very long time.